Hello. Before I begin, I need to apologize profusely. I'm sorry that there's not really going to be any slides associated with this presentation. Microsoft PowerPoint, I'm completely blind, and Microsoft PowerPoint isn't accessible. So adding pictures and things of that nature to this presentation is nigh impossible for me. And I really do wish I could add them because I feel as if for the book I'm about to, discuss, I feel like they could help a good bit, but unfortunately, due to the inaccessibility issues, it's just it unfortunately just cannot happen. So before I get started, I am genuinely sorry. But on to the actual topic of discussion today. The book I chose was Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman, and the strategy I chose to go with it was the Anticipation Guide. So, first, I'm going to discuss the book. Now, what is Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology? It's exactly what it sounds like, sort of. First, I'm going to explain. We don't when it comes to Norse mythology, we don't have the full picture. What we have is a couple of poem books. One of those books being the Prose Edda, and we have some songs and some old rune stones with these stories sketched out on them. All stuff left behind by these ancient Vikings before they were either forcefully or willingly converted to Catholicism. So, unlike Greek mythology, we don't have full, massive libraries of texts. So, what Neil Gaiman has done with this book, he's taken all of these stories that we do have, all of the ones that are most popular, and some of the ones that aren't, and put them into this book, written them in modern English so that no one has to decode the ancient texts.
Authentication. Application.
He wrote them in modern English so that nobody has to read back and translate or decode through these ancient texts. And he put a modern perspective on them. That's why I feel like this book would be perfect for students because it can educate them on all of these ancient stories. It can open up their worldview, show them how other people viewed religion and things of that nature, but it doesn't do it in a way where they're gonna have a hard time translating. So, what exactly does the book do? It is written as the author, that being Neil Gaiman, telling all of these stories to the reader in hopes that the reader will then pass these stories on to family or friends or anybody who is willing to listen to them because just like Greek myths, Norse mythology deserves to carry on and thrive generation after generation. People need to learn about these stories just like they do any other mythology. But Neil Gaiman's twist on this whole subject was that he wrote these stories as a series of ongoing events. The whole book leads up to Norse Ragnarok. Ragnarok being, for those who are unaware, the Norse apocalypse, where all of the gods will fight each other, and those who aren't killed in those battles will be taken out by Surtur, the fire demon who literally wants nothing more than to just destroy the world. Also, there's wolves who will eat the sun and the moon respectively because Norse mythology is just very extra and I love it. But that's beside the point. What it does is it all leads up to Ragnarok. But where most stories or where most books of this nature will write out Ragnarok as a thing that happened in days past, Gaiman writes it as something that's coming. He writes it as an inevitability that the gods and only the gods are contributing to, and it's just gonna happen. And he almost masterfully connects these things, like connects this apocalypse to world events and, current crises like all the different oil spills and things of that nature. This is where I think the anticipation guides come in. Now, what is an anticipation guide? For those who are unaware, it is a method of teaching in which you can ask students in several different ways what exactly they think will happen in any specific reading. For example, you could just ask them outright, okay, here's the title of this chapter, Thor's Journey into the Land of Giants. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think, what shenanigans do you think Thor is going to get up to? Or you might have this story about Freya, being wed to an ogre so that Thor could get his hammer back. Simple enough premise. You could ask students what you thought or what they thought was going to happen. I don't think any of them would think that Thor would end up dressing up like a beautiful maid so that he could trick that ogre and summon his hammer right out from under him and then, obliterate everybody at the dinner party that he was at. But that's the point of the anticipation guide. It builds predictions. It helps students see where their mind was at the beginning of the reading. And then at the end of the reading, you can ask, okay, well, how was your prediction? How close was it to the truth? And they can go in and they can either correct their prediction outright or they can write up underneath their prediction, all right, this wasn't correct. This is what happened. In another case, you could just write down a couple of events, little almost kind of true false or agree disagree kind of circumstances. You could say something along the lines of, the world was created when when Odin and his two siblings killed a larger than life giant, and the whole world is made up of that giant's corpse. According to Norse mythology, that is true, but you could leave little agree or disagree boxes. And have students write down what they think and then come back to those boxes later and either change them or write down the appropriate correct answers. My strategy for this would be having two separate anticipation guides going on at the same time. One anticipation guide for each chapter where students could write down a detailed, kind of mini summary of what they think is going to happen compared to at the end what actually happens, and a bigger overall sort of a Road to Ragnarok-esque anticipation guide where they can write down what they think is going to, like what events from each chapter they think are going to have an effect on the eventual coming of Ragnarok, what changes in events, what, alternating relationships in something such as Norse mythology where gods' allegiances can switch back and forth at such an alarming rate, where you've got people like Loki going around and causing chaos just for the sake of he thinks it's funny. Like, what events do you think personally could lead to Ragnarok? And then you could go back after you read the Ragnarok chapter and say, okay, well, I was right in this regard and I was completely wrong in that one. So there you have it. That's my presentation on Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology and the application of the anticipation guide. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I apologize for the lack of slides. I wish I could have done more, but unfortunately, there's just no way. I am so sorry. But again, I really do hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to reading all of your input. Computer? Need to stop the recording.
Log in. System dialog. That US application player in. Stop recording.